Many of us professing Christians need a more balanced walk with the Lord. In some cases, we are so close, we're so immersed in the Bible that we're missing a true relationship with the God of the Bible. The scriptures are great for instruction, reproof, and many other things. But we can't forget about the Spirit of God. We can't forget about the God of the Bible himself. That there are times that just like people in the Bible, rather than maybe searching the scriptures or opening it up and hoping to come across something that will speak to us, that will resonate with us, they will actually communicate with the Lord and expect to hear from him, audibly or otherwise. In Genesis 25, when Rebekah was having issues with her pregnancy, she went directly to the Lord and inquired of him. And that was when the Lord revealed to her that she was pregnant with twins, that two nations were wrestling within her, and that the older would serve the younger. And you can say, well, they didn't have scriptures back then. But in the time of David, there were scriptures. And in 2 Samuel 21, David inquired of the Lord because there was a drought. And that was when the Lord told him the drought was because of King Saul shedding innocent blood. And that's when David sought a way to make things right so that the flood, or correction, the drought could end. So we see in the Bible where people inquired of the Lord. And that is something many of us today, in part because we think we have the scriptures and that is the be-all and end-all, that we forget about having a personal relationship with the Lord, that we don't inquire of him. That in accordance with Romans 8:14, that we're not truly being led by the Holy Spirit of God. In 1 Kings 19, we see the prophet Elijah. He was expecting to hear from the Lord. He didn't hear from the earthquake, the fire, or the wind, but he heard the still, small voice of the Holy Spirit. And sometimes that is how the Lord will communicate to us. It'll be an internal voice, or it comes across as a thought, but it is coming from the Spirit of the Lord, and it will bear fruit. And sometimes it will actually be an exact quotation of scriptures. Back in 2023, I shared a story of how I was in Blue Mountains in Jamaica. And because of an incident with my drone and a tree, I went into the bushes and I developed a rash on my right arm. And I started using hydrocortisone, but it really wasn't working. And I was praying about other things. And the Lord said to me in that time, calamine. I don't know if you can find it, but with the times I've been through the Bible, I have never found calamine in the Bible. So the Lord had to tell it to me, calamine. And when I started using calamine on my rash, it healed quicker, and it healed totally. Now it's gone. And even more recently, this year in 2025, I was helping someone work on a project, and there were issues. It was delayed because it is something I've done for myself many times for God's glory, and it worked in a sense without issues. But this time there were delays, and the Lord told me the changes that I need to make before I received a message that changes need to be made. He told me the changes that need to be made and change to the font size so that the document would fit the previous file. And lo and behold, it worked. It was also at that time, and I'm not sure exactly what was going on, but the Spirit of the Lord said to me, O ye of little faith. Now, with the gifts of the Holy Spirit, and sometimes people speak about the gifts of the Holy Spirit and they leave these out because it's not conducive, it doesn't coalesce with their theology. But in 1 Corinthians 12, the Apostle Paul wrote about the gifts of the Holy Spirit: word of knowledge, word of wisdom, prophecy, faith, miracles, healings, speaking of tongues, interpretation of tongues, and the discerning of spirits. My strongest gift is the gift of faith. So even though the Lord gently spoke to me, kind of like with Elijah, hearing the still small voice of the Holy Spirit, when he said, O ye of little faith, quoting things that Jesus said, it was a gentle rebuke, but it cut against the grain of what is my strongest gift, where my faith was wavering. And it may not have seemed like it to me, but the Lord let me know that my faith was wavering. So those are kind of things. And there are even times when we may be in a potentially dangerous position, or we're in a dangerous position, and the Lord wants to give us directive. And we must be open to hearing his communication, whether he speaks to us audibly or he gives us some kind of sign to let us know what we should do. During the time of David, it speaks about the sons of Issachar, about 200 of them. And one of the things that set them apart is that they could recognize basically the signs of the times, and they would tell Israel what to do. So just because we have the Bible, it doesn't mean that we should just immerse ourselves in it and lock the God of the Bible himself out of our lives. There are certain things we need to inquire of him for. In 2 Corinthians 12, the Apostle Paul was having an issue with a messenger of Satan. The Greek word angelos for messenger, meaning angel. So an angel of Satan was tormenting the Apostle Paul. And sometimes if we just read the Bible, we may think that if we're going through something like that, then prayer and fasting would be the solution. But the Lord let him know that his grace would be sufficient for him, which basically meant, in military terms, suck it up and drive on. Grin and bear it, because it was for the Apostle Paul's humility. So there are times when, yes, it is not forsaking the scriptures, but it is relying on the God of the Bible by inquiring of him and expecting to hear him communicate, whether audibly or otherwise, for his glory.